welcome to Scotland at 7 here on Broadcasting Scotland. I'm Kenny McBride, and just to let you all know, first of all, it's good to be back. My surgery went very well. Thanks for all the well wishes that some of you have sent in. And also, I've had a wee change to my face as well. This is me, but I took the beard off because I discovered I was touching my face an awful lot when I had it, so I've decided to take it off. So this is a whole new me here tonight. I'm joined tonight by a friend of the show, regular guest, Sam Payton, who's joining us from home. Sam, how are you this evening?
I'm fine, Kenny, and you're looking great. You're looking fabulous. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. It's very kind of you to say so. So anyway, our first story today is unsurprisingly on coronavirus. As of 2 p.m. today in Scotland, there has been a total of 9,968 tests concluded. Of these, 9,384 tests were confirmed negative and 584 were positive. This marks an increase of 85 confirmed cases since yesterday. Number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus infection has sadly risen to 16. In the UK, 422 patients who tested positive for coronavirus have sadly died from their illness. A total of 90,436 people have been tested, of which 82,359 were confirmed negative and 8,077 were confirmed positive. At Holyrood today, several new measures were announced by the First Minister. She first emphasised the need for people to stick to lockdown and distancing guidelines, stressing that life should not be feeling normal. If it is, you're not sticking to the rules. She encouraged businesses to enable staff to work from home where possible and to shut down if not. In a contrast with Michael Gove's comments earlier in the day, Sturgeon said building sites should stop working except on essential work like hospital construction and repair. Meanwhile, the Scottish Parliament will now meet on a much reduced schedule for the immediate future, going down to just 1 day per week. Committees will still meet, but with fewer people in attendance to enable proper distancing between them. This procedure for committees has already been in place for some time. Health Secretary Jeane Freeman then announced that the Scottish Government has come to terms with the private firms running car parks at some of Scotland's PFI-run hospitals to suspend parking charges for the next 3 months. Sandra White MSP, who kick-started the campaign to end the charges, welcomed the news as a great relief for hard-pressed NHS staff and promised to keep fighting to get these charges binned permanently. Also at Holyrood, MSPs voted to grant legislative consent to Westminster to enable the provisions of the UK coronavirus to take effect in Scotland. This bill enables certain former NHS staff to return to the workforce quickly, to enable the government to collect better information on the spread of the virus and its impact on critical systems like the food supply chain, and also to empower the police and other authorities to take stronger action to enforce lockdown policies. The bill will remain in force for 2 years with the potential to be extended if necessary. And Sam, quite a lot happening at Westminster, Holyrood rather, today. What do you make of these announcements from Jeane Freeman and on the closure of Holyrood especially?
I think it's essential at the moment. If they're wanting all us to stay at home and to kind of stop the virus, I was going to say disease, it's not a disease, it's a virus, from spreading, I think they need to kind of lead by example. And I think they're making the right move. Today on social media, I've not really been on a lot today because I've been kind of doing other things. But one of the things I seen was the Scottish Greens have already set up, I don't know if it's Skype or what, I'm terrible with technology, you need to forgive me, and set up a system so they can talk and keep communicating. And I'm sure lots of other parties will be doing the same. And I think this is where technology is going to come in until its own, and we realise that, because I think it was a few weeks ago we were talking about Parliament and one of the pressures facing some of the MSPs when they're working away from home and going to Edinburgh. So this might actually prove and maybe force that issue as well, that we can work from home, and especially our politicians are able to work. We have got the technology doing and not doing, because there seems to be a bit of confusion. I know from where I'm sitting at the moment, there's been a lot of people who have been saying they're a bit confused because Boris Johnson's announcements have been a wee bit they've not been 100% clear, whereas with Nicola Sturgeon, she's very clear, very concise, exactly what we're doing, and it's confusing people. So, me personally, I'm taking my advice from Nicola Sturgeon, but however, there is certainly, this is a good way to kind of indicate if life feels normal, then you're doing something wrong. Life shouldn't feel normal right now. And after the weekend, when we seen the people going out and, Loch Lomond was absolutely jam-packed. And it's like, this virus is quite contagious. Be careful.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a holiday. This is very much a lockdown where we're not meant to be outside. What was the road like up there? I mean, that road can be pretty hectic at the best of times.
Well, I live just in a village just off the A82. I generally don't see it, but I hear it. And it sounds as if at the moment there's very much a case of traffic, the normal volume of traffic. Because I was in self-isolation last week, so I wasn't out and about. But in saying that, from what I've seen on social media, the road was jam-packed at certain times while people were travelling up to 82 up north, which is, I can understand people want to get away, but in our area, because we don't have emergency services within our area, it's Glasgow and Paisley.
Yeah.
If anything happens, it puts our emergency services under pressure at the best of times. Right now, it is really putting pressure onto our emergency services, especially if there is an accident. Yeah. One of the posts on Facebook was that there was ambulances struggling to get up and down the A82 because of the sheer amount of volume of traffic on Friday late afternoon. Yeah. And people just need to kind of think, if there's people requiring emergency hospital treatment, it's vital these ambulances get through. Majority of people are really good at allowing ambulances to get through. Unfortunately, you do get the odd person that doesn't. And that's the problem with the A82 and everybody treating it as a bank holiday. Yeah. It's mind-boggling, really mind-boggling why people, because it was like a bank holiday really weekend, the way people were treating it.
Yeah, I think one of the problems that we face is that because it's still relatively small numbers, most people don't yet know somebody who's got it, so they don't necessarily have that kind of awareness of just how risky it is. We do have a graph here, which I'm just going to bring up, showing the rise in that steep line at the top is the total number of cases. The line below that is the number of new cases. You can see both of them are rising quite fast. The red line at the bottom there is the number of deaths, which obviously rising at a much slower rate. But still, that graph is only going to get steeper. We've doubled the number of new cases every 3 to 5 days since the virus first appeared in Scotland. People need to be aware that if we don't lock down, then we stop going from doubling to maybe going to tripling or quadrupling every 2 or 3 days. And at that rate, everyone in Scotland will be infected within a month or two.
The thing is as well, I think what a lot of people are not getting, there's a lot of people in self-isolation that we don't know if they're infected or got a cold or a flu or another virus.
Yeah.
So the numbers are this is only a tip of the iceberg, these numbers, and it is serious, and especially with Scotland's geographical area, some of these villages and towns are quite remote. So getting emergency services to these people is going to be a bit of a task. And also as well, we don't, especially up in the Highlands, they don't have the capacity. They're struggling with the capacity to deal with it. Never mind putting tourists on top of that at the moment. It's quite scary. It is quite scary.
Yeah, there's so many areas of Scotland. I mean, you're not even all that far from the biggest city in the country, and you have potential difficulties. People out in the wilds of the Highlands could face really serious problems if this does start to get unmanageable numbers. So yeah, we just have to do all we can. We will move on just now though. More coronavirus related news. The SNP has pressed the UK government to introduce a financial package of support for self-employed and unemployed people without further delay. Ian Blackford MP wrote to the Chancellor on Saturday calling for an urgent cross-party meeting, but hasn't had a reply. The SNP Westminster leader said the lockdown meant it was even more urgent that a financial package is introduced, with the SNP proposing 4 key measures. Firstly, ensure everyone has a guaranteed income, using the tax and welfare system to put money directly in people's pockets through a universal basic income, reverse national insurance, or another similar mechanism. Raise the UK's statutory sick pay rate to the EU national average and expand entitlement for the self-employed and those under the earnings threshold. Include self-employed people in the coronavirus job retention scheme, providing the same support for the self-employed as announced for employees, and strengthen welfare protections, increasing child benefit and making universal credit more flexible. SNP MPs Richard Thompson, Chris Stevens, Patrick Grady, David Linden and Stuart MacDonald raised the issue in the House of Commons at today's Treasury Questions, calling for the UK Government to consider the SNP proposals. Commenting, SNP Westminster leader Ian Blackford MP said, "The coronavirus lockdown makes it even more urgent that the UK Government delivers a comprehensive financial package of support for the millions of freelancers, self-employed and unemployed people who are struggling to get by in this unprecedented emergency." The SNP is calling for the Chancellor to use the tax and welfare system to introduce a guaranteed income for everyone, raise statutory sick pay to the EU average, and strengthen welfare protections by increasing child benefit and making universal credit more flexible. And this is something that we've talked a wee bit about on the show before. We've talked about universal basic income many times as a general principle that we're quite fond of here at the channel. What do you make of these suggestions from the SNP?
I welcome them. As somebody who's self-employed, I definitely agree with universal payment, and especially at the moment. I know SNP are doing all they can at the moment to get more support for self-employed. As somebody that's self-employed, I'm part of a community of other self-employed people who are all seriously worried and very anxious at the moment because they don't know. There's not enough help. There's not enough information out there. Because at the moment, what it seems like is if you've got a premises, you can apply for a grant through the Scottish Government. However, but there's so many people out there, and this again starts to affect like single people, single parents who are self-employed working from home. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of these people out there, and they are in a predicament right now. Because if they apply for the statutory sick pay or the universal credit, what happens is it can affect their working tax credit. Mm-hmm. And then, so there's they're kind of caught in this kind of, mountain in a hard place at the moment. And daily I've been talking to people and we're trying to find, between us all, we're all trying to find ways round about this and keep each other up to date within the community, but it's very difficult. So it seems to be the kind of half attempt of often supporting self-employed seems to be you can apply for a loan. Mm-hmm. Now that's not technically helping the self-employed sole trader business person. That's helping banks because they've only got a timeline of when they can pay that loan back interest-free, and then the interest gets added on. So again, it seems to be the UK government is more interested in helping banks once again. Yeah. We've already bailed out the banks. So how about bailing out the normal,
Ordinary
everyday
people.
people. Give everybody a universal payment.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we all pay our taxes. We all pay into the system. We all pay our contributions towards the treasury. So therefore, in times of crisis, we are looked after, or that's how it should work,
Yeah.
and how we're to believe it should work. And self-employed pay their taxes, they pay their way. So yeah, I welcome anything that the Scottish Government can do to offer more support to self-employed. At the moment, we're just in limbo at the moment in regards, and as I say, we're all the self-employed people are generally all talking to each other, supporting each other. And one of the ways we're all supporting each other, especially ones that within the arts community, arts and crafts community, is we are now kind of working as a network and supporting, sharing each other's work and helping each other out that way. So we're finding different ways to work on, but however, it's still really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, I think I seen a comment on Twitter saying, but you can still work and make money. Yeah, we can, but the thing is, at the moment, people are not wanting to spend money on arts and crafts. They're wanting to make sure their cupboards are full of food. They're wanting to make sure there's food there for their kids and there is electricity there and gas there. That's the priorities right now. Not going buying arts and crafts at the moment. So it's a tough industry. It's a tough industry to be in during normal economic times, but at the moment it's certainly a tough industry.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I have a friend who. Yeah, I have a friend who makes jewellery, and she sells it at these conventions and things. They're all kind of geeky stuff, and she sells it at kind of comic conventions, and those have all been cancelled. So she still has her Etsy shop, and she's making a small amount from that, but her main income has just disappeared, and that's income that she's never going to get back. So a loan really wouldn't help. She just needs money in her pocket so that she can pay her rent and her bills. But on that subject of paying bills, the SNP has renewed pressure on the UK government to urgently support workers and families after new research revealed that working from home due to the coronavirus pandemic could cost UK households a staggering £52 million more each week on energy bills. The call for action follows a letter to the Chancellor Rishi Sunak from the Scottish Government's Economy Secretary Fiona Hislop and Finance Secretary Kate Forbes, pushing for the Jobs Retention Scheme to be expanded to include the self-employed, and also for a change in the rules to enable more people to access statutory sick pay. According to estimates by comparison site Uswitch, households will use 25% more electricity and 17% more gas per day as millions more people work from home, amounting to an increase of up to £195 a year per household. Drew Hendry, the SNP's shadow business spokesperson, said, "Millions of people across the UK will rightly be following government advice to work from home and staying at home unless absolutely necessary. However, the impact of working from home and the hit to people's pockets will undoubtedly add to the financial strain already being felt by the self-employed and other workers. With new research revealing that households could pay a staggering £52 million more per week on energy bills, amounting to just under £200 a year per household, and with many people feeling that financial pressure, the UK government must step in before more people are pushed into hardship. This will be a difficult time for many across the UK, and it is crucial that governments across the UK work together to support them through this unprecedented crisis." Now, we've seen in some other countries in Europe, for example, suspensions to electricity and gas bills. Often those are still state-owned companies in parts of Europe, not something that we have here. So it's perhaps more difficult to suspend those payments. But what do you think of giving people a wee kind of like something like a winter fuel allowance, coronavirus fuel allowance?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm sorry, but yeah, I agree. At the moment, not just people that are self-employed, but generally people, everybody is using more energy at the moment because they're all staying at home. The kids are at home, so there is a lot more electricity being used up, whether it's the internet for Google Classroom, and the kids doing their studies, and and you're also heating the house. I mean, thankfully, well, apart from today, the weather's been not too bad, but thankfully we're moving into summer rather than winter. But yes, we do need help. The government needs to put something in place, and that's where a universal payment would also come in handy.
Yeah.
As well as some sort of help through our utilities. I know I got an email from one of the utility companies the other day, because I'm a prepayment card meter, and the answer was, during this crisis, was to top up more frequently, and try and top up more frequently before you have to go into self-isolation. Now, you don't know if you're going to have to go into self-isolation. And if you're in self-isolation, get a neighbour or a family member to top up on your behalf. But the problem is not everybody's got family or neighbours. We live in a country where we do have remote villages.
Yes.
And that's the thing, we don't all live in a city. And so it's quite difficult how they think this is going to work. And now, with most shops being closed today, it's finding the shops. I contacted Scottish Power through Twitter today, asking what's in place for people if the shops that provide a service suddenly decide to close, because if they decide that they don't want to put their staff at risk and they want to close. And all I got was a link to their website. There's nothing there in place yet, which is quite concerning.
Yeah, and of course those people who are using prepaid meters, even if are likely to have less disposable income, so they're less likely to be able to kind of get ahead of themselves. They're also, if you're someone who's in a vulnerable group, for example, you're likely to be put in self-isolation for a lot longer, and you're already paying more because you're on a prepaid meter than on a direct debit. So it's a very tough issue, and yeah, we support absolutely calls for some sort of payment to help people through that. On the subject of businesses, though, businesses can now apply for grants to help them deal with the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. The one-off grants are designed to help protect jobs, prevent business closures and promote economic recovery, and more than 90,000 rate-paying businesses across Scotland will be able to benefit. The grant support is additional to separate tax relief measures and is part of a package of measures worth £2.2 billion. Small businesses in receipt of the Small Business Bonus Scheme or Rural Relief, as well as hospitality, leisure and retail businesses, can benefit. Two types of grant are now available to ratepayers: a one-off £10,000 grant to ratepayers of small businesses, and a one-off grant of £25,000 available to retail, hospitality and leisure business ratepayers with a rateable value between £18,001 and £50,999. This list is not exhaustive, and if businesses think they may be eligible for one of these grants, they should contact their local authority, who are administering the scheme on behalf of the Scottish Government. And Cabinet Finance Secretary Kate Forbes said, "While our primary concern is for people's health, it is clear that the coronavirus outbreak will have severe economic consequences, and we are treating it as an economic emergency. We are determined to help keep companies in business and support them and their staff during this difficult time. Local authorities are the most efficient way to deliver this, and we have worked closely with them to deliver these measures. Eligible businesses can apply now. Local authorities will aim to make payments within 10 working days, and I'd like to thank them for their help in ensuring this support is delivered as quickly as possible. The COVID-19 situation, however, is both severe and fast-moving and requires a coordinated UK response. I will continue to work closely with the UK Government and the other devolved administrations." So again, this might be something that would apply to you, Sam. Is this welcome news?
Yes, it is. I didn't think I would qualify, but it turns out, because I've got a wee office that I use, that I may qualify, so this will help out a lot. But I would like to see more, not for me personally, but for the ones that are working from home who don't have a commercial premises, they're working from home. They're the ones that are really struggling because their household bills have basically went up, their incomes went down. So yeah, I would like to see some sort of grant available for people working from home as well. But yeah, hopefully the Scottish Government can. I know they keep saying that they're working quite hard and putting things in place, which is very positive. And it's just about kind of sitting tight at the moment, because at the end of the day, these things don't happen overnight. It's getting the things into place, so it's all very positive. So yeah. Hopefully there's more to come.
Hopefully, yeah. Moving on now to some non-coronavirus related news. New statistics published today showed a slight increase in the overall uptake of vaccinations for infants in their first year of life. In the year to December, 96.1% of children will have received the initial 6-in-1 course, an increase of 0.2%. On other measures, including the 4-in-1 booster by age 6, there was a very slight decline. Keeping vaccination rates above 95% helps to provide strong so-called herd immunity, where the immunity of the vast majority of the population prevents the spread of many illnesses to the vulnerable 5% who do not receive these vaccinations for a variety of reasons. Commenting, Public Health Minister Joe Fitzpatrick reminded all parents and carers of the importance of continuing to get their children vaccinated during the coronavirus outbreak. He said, "I am pleased to see that childhood immunisation rates across Scotland remain very high, reflecting both the hard work and commitment of our colleagues in the NHS and a recognition among parents and carers of the benefits of vaccination. I want to remind all parents and carers of the importance of getting their children vaccinated throughout the coronavirus outbreak. Your GP or health board will still be available to do this, and it is advised that you keep these appointments." And I'm sure you're aware, you're a mother yourself. These vaccinations are important, and especially when there's already this outbreak potentially affecting people. It doesn't make sense to take the risk of a measles outbreak or a mumps outbreak or one of these other diseases.
The thing is, I can only comment as a mum. I'm not a medical profession, and I know there's a lot of controversy regarding vaccinations. But from my point of view, yeah, my kids have had all their vaccinations. That's my point of view, my thing, and that's because of the fact one of my brothers nearly died when he was 2 through measles. So he was rushed into York Hill, and it was very, very serious. So I've always made sure that my kids had their vaccinations. With just having that experience regarding how serious these childhood illnesses can be. But again, it's all down, the parents need to speak to their GPs, their health visitors, and do what's right for them, and stay away from the information on the internet, because there's a lot of controversy on there that's a bit, not very good. Yeah. But no, they need to speak to the medical professionals about, but definitely. Yeah, there was a lot of controversy, especially around the MMR vaccine a few
years ago. But as we now know, that threat that was described was an absolute fraud. It was not true in any way.
Be careful what you're reading, and it's always worth going to have that conversation with, whether it's a health visitor or a GP, have that conversation, make the appointment just to have that conversation. And that's what I did, then you can make a proper choice, whether it's right or wrong for you, rather than just taking what's on the internet. As we know, there's a lot of things that can be misconceived on the internet. It's very, just about being careful and taking the proper advice.
And as well, you're not just protecting yourself or your own kids. You're protecting the other kids that maybe that have particular health conditions that can't get the vaccinations. That your kid being immunised helps protect them. That's what herd immunity is all about. So again, we do just encourage you, do take these things seriously if you've got a young child. As Sam says, talk to your GP about it. They'll give you the best information they've got, which is that these vaccines are safe and it's a very good idea to get them. But 96% is a great number, and we should be grateful for that. Moving on though, in line with recent advice on coronavirus announced by the First Minister, campsites, caravan and holiday parks in Scotland are to close immediately to new arrivals, including tourers, other transient visitors and holiday lets. Sites should also advise current visitors and owners of second homes on sites to return home and stay at home where they can do so safely and practically. Rural Economy Secretary Fergus Ewing said, "As the Scottish Government has made abundantly clear, this is not the time for holidays, travel or for being away from home. Additional visitors, particularly to rural areas and our islands, will put a severe strain on local resources and the NHS, which is not set up to cover the needs of non-residents long term. All those who can safely do so should now return to their primary residence. However, I also understand that in some cases, residential mobile homes, motorhomes, camper vans and holiday lets on a caravan park or tourist site may be someone's primary home, and that some people will be able to return to where they usually live. Sites should be sympathetic to the circumstances of these individuals and should, where necessary, remain open on a partial basis for these occupants only. We recognise this is an incredibly testing time for the tourism industry, and we appreciate the tremendous efforts underway by businesses large and small within the sector to respond. I am therefore grateful to the business organisations that represent campsites, holiday parks, caravan sites and motorhome hire businesses for supporting their members to close at this difficult time. We look forward to welcoming visitors back to campsites, caravans and holiday parks in Scotland when it's safe to do so." And this goes into a bit of what we were talking about earlier. This isn't a time for holidays, and if you're going into especially remote areas like the Highlands, in fact we've heard similar stories in Cornwall, parts of Wales, people trying to get away from from London especially, where there's a higher rate of infection than elsewhere, and getting to somewhere where it's safe in the Highlands because there's nobody around. What do you think of this trend that we've seen in the last week or so of people trying to fleeing to the Highlands and Islands?
It's just absurd. It really is. I mean, to think that people have decided, the Highlands is going to be safe, it's just unbelievable. The thing is, they could be carrying the virus. They don't know. Just because they don't have symptoms, they could be carrying the virus into remote areas. One of the things that I've seen over the weekend in the last few days is numerous politicians from all the parties right across the board telling people to go home and to stay away from the Highlands, which was really good. And it was really good to see that, politics aside, they were all saying, come on, this is not the time and the place, which was very humbling to see. But the thing is, what people don't realise is with the Highlands, yes, it's remote, there's nobody else there, and yes, they're isolated, but what happens if they have an accident? What happens if they fall? What happens if they trip up? How do the emergency services get there? There was an incident over the weekend where the Wangy, which is just up the back from me, there was somebody that fell and broke a leg, and the emergency services had to go. And that's not a tough walk, that's quite a nice flat walk. So it's still putting pressure on the emergency services. You don't know. I mean, I love hill walking, I love the outdoors, but right now is not the time and the place to be disappearing up to the Highlands. One of the things that I seen was one of the wild camping sites was a gentleman who put up a tent in his living room and then put up a video of a scenery, and that was him away wild camping with the kids. Fantastic, still making memories, still having fun, but in the safety of their primary home. But yeah, this is not the time and place to be going holiday and even thinking about going on holiday, to be honest.
Yeah, as the guidance has been for some time now, no unnecessary travel. And this in particular is one that we really have to clamp down on. Anyway, moving on, the SNP has urged the UK's Foreign Office to set out updated guidance and practical support for UK citizens stranded overseas due to the coronavirus crisis, with SNP MPs warning of cases of constituents stuck abroad with little support and in increasingly vulnerable positions. Despite the FCO earlier issuing guidance calling on UK nationals to return to the UK now if they're travelling abroad, many people are stuck due to countries going into lockdown, airlines hiking prices for the remaining commercial flights, and people being pushed into financial difficulties and facing hurdles accessing key services and advice. Leading for the SNP in an urgent question in Westminster today, the SNP's shadow transport spokesperson Gavin Newlands MP said, "The UK government has taken positive steps to help UK nationals stranded overseas. However, there are still many cases of constituents left without support and information that they so desperately need. With only a limited number of commercial routes home, many at extortionate rates, and more countries imposing stricter measures to tackle the coronavirus pandemic, the FCO must urgently outline what support is being offered to UK citizens stuck abroad. Many MPs are receiving concerning cases of constituents who have no means of getting home, have health issues and need access to care, will be facing financial strain due to costs, and have had issues accessing consular advice in relevant countries. The reality on the ground is difficult and ever-changing. I urge the FCO to do absolutely everything in its power to repatriate UK citizens and set out what practical and financial resources are currently being made available to those stranded UK nationals, and working effectively with UK embassies to assist citizens accessing accommodation and healthcare that they may need." And this is a real problem. I saw a report yesterday of a couple who had gone to Australia. They had then missed their flight home because they'd been, I think they'd been self-isolating, and so had not been able to get their flight home. But then all flights were cancelled, so they're stuck there now with not a penny to their name. They were told, "Oh, just buy one of these few flights that there are," and we don't have any money. How are we going to do that? We've also heard cases of other countries where people were told, "Contact the embassy," and when they contacted the embassy, they found that the embassy was closed and wasn't able to give out any advice or support. What do you think of all this situation?
It's heartbreaking. It is absolutely astonishing. At this moment in time, this is when we really do need our consulates. Because I've seen myself on social media and things, reports, people being stranded, get no money, they can't, the flights hiking up the prices and things. There needs to be more done. FOC needs to be doing a lot more. It's shocking. We shouldn't be, in a time like this, the end of the day, we knew this was going to be happening. We should be a lot more prepared. There needs to be a way of getting these people back home, and there needs to be, the consulates are there to support people when they are in these countries, and if they get stranded. I just don't know. It's just heartbreaking to think that you could be abroad on holiday and something happens and you're left there stranded with no money and no means of getting home. It's the worst. It's one of the worst case scenarios if you're abroad. It's just, especially if you've got health issues and things as well. It's just horrible. There's got to be, the government's got to step in. The Home Office has got to be doing something. There's got to be something done to help these people. There really has.
Yeah, and it's as you say, the people that are maybe only had short-term health insurance for a trip. There's people who just don't have the money to stay any longer, whether it's to pay for their hotel, to pay for a new flight, whatever it is. It's incredibly difficult. And if the embassies are not engaged, if the embassies aren't getting involved, what else are embassies there for if not to help citizens who are stuck in the country with some problem they're facing? Yeah,
that's the thing. That's why they're there. It's that support system. So if they're closed, the support system's gone. The system is failing these people effectively. The government's failing these people. At the end of the day, they're desperately needing help, and they need to get home. And something needs to be done. Whether it's getting a couple of flights, I don't know, and speaking to the countries and seeing if they would allow a couple of flights in to get the people out. I don't know. They need to have these conversations, because they just can't leave people stranded. I wouldn't like to think they would just leave people stranded without a way of getting home, without any finance as well. That's the thing. And not everybody's got money sitting in a bank account that can go and afford to book into a hotel or rent a wee cottage somewhere. It's...
Yeah, I mean, this kind of government advice, again, it comes from a place of people who have quite a lot of money to spare, and don't think about what it's like for somebody who's saved every penny they've got to go on a trip to Peru or Australia or Japan or wherever they are.
A lot of times people have saved for a good couple of years to go on these holidays and these trips, and the last thing they think about is something going wrong, like on this scale, because nothing's ever really went wrong in this scale in our generation, really. So you think of your kind of health insurance, your basics, but you don't think of something like this. Nobody in their wildest dreams would think of, when you're booking your holiday 2 years ago or a year ago, that we were going to be facing a pandemic where countries around the world were going into lockdown.
Yeah, and I mean, even relatively close to home, like Italy and Spain, are and their healthcare systems are under such pressure already. A UK citizen who's stuck in one of those countries, it's not necessarily entitled now to the same healthcare support that they were when we were still members of the EU. I mean, these are some of the Brexit related issues that we never thought about much, and now suddenly we're kind of really having to look very closely at how we relate to the rest of the world. It's a real challenge.
Yeah, this is at the moment. This is one of the times where we really could be doing with not having Brexit. But yeah, it's. I think a lot of people will be looking at the world kind of quite differently now, and looking at the European Union quite differently now, in the sense that they're all pulling together and pulling resources together. And European Union, as I read the other day, you can correct me as I'm wrong, that they're even willing to give Britain support as well, for certain circumstances and certain things. But no, it's just very... this is one of the occasions where we could be doing without Brexit, to be honest with you, on top of the pandemic. Yeah. But as I say, it never rains, but it snows, really. It's...
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a perfect storm for Britain at the moment. Hopefully, for these people who are stranded, they can find some support that the Foreign Office does get its act together, because as I say, when I heard that people were phoning the embassy and finding that they were just getting an answering machine message, I mean, that's really, in my view, unforgivable. But anyway, we will move on again to some other, again, non-coronavirus news. The SNP has renewed calls for the UK government to make legal aid available for immigration cases, as Scotland has done, including for those applying to the Windrush Compensation Scheme. Ahead of the remaining stages of the Windrush Compensation Scheme expenditure bill set to pass through the House of Commons today, I'm just hearing it just has passed through the House of Commons today. The SNP's Shadow Immigration Minister said feedback on the application process for the scheme had made it clear that it's far too complicated for any ordinary person to navigate. Stuart MacDonald MP urged the Home Office to make funds for legal aid available to those affected by the Windrush scandal, and called for the compensation scheme to be run by an independent body instead of the Home Office, highlighting that Windrush victims may be reluctant to contact the very department that caused them their misery. Mr. MacDonald said, Windrush victims deserve to be justly compensated for what they've been through, and I welcome the fact that the scheme has been established and encourage anyone affected by the scandal to apply. However, it is clear that the application process is far too complicated to navigate without proper legal assistance. The UK government must properly fund community groups, faith and small civil society organisations to support ongoing or planned outreach and advice work intended to help people affected by the Windrush crisis. It must make legal aid available. The scheme must also be completely independent from the Home Office to encourage uptake. Windrush victims may rightly be reluctant to get in touch again with the very department that caused them such misery. If the UK government really wants to do right by the Windrush generation, they should use today to reflect on the fact that the Windrush scandal was a product of their hostile environment policies and scrap them immediately. And this is something that we have, again, talked about many times, the Home Office and their hostile environment, their determination to make life as difficult as possible for anyone who's not white and speaks with a British accent. Arguably even just an English accent, but we don't need to go too much into that right now. What do you make of this Windrush compensation scheme, first of all, and the idea that maybe it shouldn't be the Home Office that's running it?
Basically, I don't think the Home Office should be running it. I think there should be an independent body running it. Why would the people from infected by this be contacting the Home Office? They created a really hostile environment, which is to a certain degree still we living in a kind of hostile environment at times when it comes to certain things. I think with Brexit and things like that, it's just horrendous. So I think we need to have a compensation, and there's got to be legal aid, but it should be ran by an independent body, definitely, not the Home Office.
Yeah,
I think that's ludicrous.
What do you make of that difference between Scotland and the rest of the UK, where Scotland does provide legal aid on immigration cases, but they don't get it down south? Where do you think that difference comes from?
We're just generally a more progressive country. We're more progressive and forward thinking as well, and the kind of hostility is not the same here. There's maybe down in parts of the UK, and we recognise that everybody, we just welcome people from around the world. We're just part of more of a world community, and we are more progressive up here, and I think it's great that people can get legal aid up here for immigration, and it's as if really we lead the UK in a lot of aspects of government, where we kind of take that lead, and then the UK government follows on from the Scottish government.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that there's no racism in Scotland or anything like that, but I do think you're right that there's a kind of more of a consensus in the Scottish Parliament, certainly, on some of these issues, where we understand the value of immigration. We understand, the importance of access to justice in that sense. It's bizarre, I think, to have people come into your country and then say, right, navigate this really complicated legal system that you don't understand, is all done in a language that might not be your own, but we're not going to give you any help to do it.
It's just ludicrous. I mean, the thing is, I think the difference between Scotland and the rest, the England, the UK government, is basically we recognise the economic benefits as well as the culture benefits. We're having, immigration and people staying here and being part of our country, and it's as if you can turn around and apply for it, but we're going to make it really difficult. So maybe you won't, and maybe you'll just go. It's horrible. It's not a nice way to be. I just find it from. Maybe I'm being a bit naive. I don't know, but I just think it's just it's it's a way of saying, yeah, we don't really want you here, so we're going to make it hard, and make it difficult for you. Maybe I'm being naive, I don't know, rather than making it a bit more welcoming and saying, right, come on, what can you offer us? Right, come on, let's go, we can work together.
Yeah. The hostile environment has been a disaster, really, in all sorts of ways. It's fed into the Brexit debate and everything. As I say, I think it is great that we do have that legal aid here. And again, we would join in the Stuart MacDonald there and calling for the Windrush thing not to be administered by the Home Office. It just seems daft, I think, to have them policing themselves effectively, rather than having an independent body that can be trusted.
Policing themselves. Who's going to monitor them? Who's going to oversee them to make sure they're given the correct and proper advice? And and that's the problem, especially with their past history.
Yeah.
So it needs to be an independent body, definitely.
Absolutely. And just before we wrap up, a wee bit of sad news. Albert Uderzo, the illustrator and co-creator of the comic series Asterix and Obelix, died in the early hours of this morning, aged 92. Uderzo died in his sleep at his home in Neuilly after a heart attack that was not linked to the coronavirus. He had been extremely tired for the past several weeks. His son-in-law, Bernard de Choisy, told Agence France Presse. Uderzo and author René Goscinny are known as the fathers of the French comic series about a small village of Gauls who stand up to Roman occupiers. Starting in 1959, Uderzo was initially the illustrator of the comic strip written by Goscinny, who died in 1977. After Goscinny's death, Uderzo wrote and illustrated the series until he retired in 2009. Asterix, the magic potion-fueled star of the comics, his sidekick Obelix, and other villagers, including Vital Statistics the Chief and Getafix the Wizard, have become a mainstay in the publishing industry, with more than 370 million books sold worldwide. And I was very sad to hear this news today. I was a huge fan of Asterix growing up. Were you an Asterix fan yourself?
Who doesn't like Asterix? That's really heartbreaking. That's really sad. But comforting to know that his work's going to live on and for future generations. I read Asterix. My two older sons have enjoyed Asterix. My youngest still hasn't quite found Asterix yet. So I'm hoping he's going to kind of start pretty soon when he gets a wee bit older, maybe kind of enjoy the kind of love of Asterix. So it's very, very sad, but comforting to know that his work is going to live on for future generations.
Yeah.
It's such a sad. Yeah, it's just a kind of sad note, isn't it?
To start as just an illustrator, I mean the pictures and the tiny panels in Asterix, but there's so much detail in all of them, and there's so much going on. There's wee jokes happening in the background. There's so much detail, and then to take on writing them as well, and it's not like there was a big decline in the quality of the later books. Some of the ones that he wrote himself were really, really excellent. It's just very, very sad news. But 92 is a pretty good innings.
Yeah, he's had probably, I would imagine, a fantastic life, really fulfilling life. And his family, I hope they take comfort to know that there's going to be part of him that lives on in everybody, from the memories of his Asterix and his wee comic strips and things. So it's quite sad. Yeah, I mean,
50 years he worked on them, as I say, started in 1959, retired in 2009, and there are other writers that he's passed it on to, who are still producing new books now. And as you say, I think these things will live on for a long, long time. They've been translated into something like 100 languages, which is an incredible thing, because there's so much of so many of the jokes are wordplay. Even the names, the Vital Statistics and Asterix and Obelix and stuff. These names are all wordplay, and yet I'm told that in all the languages that it's been translated into, they try and include a lot of that wordplay. They have to edit some of the jokes a wee bit to make them work a different way, but But yeah, it's incredible that this comic that started in France in the 50s is now this worldwide institution. They've made cartoons, they've made films. It's a huge part of my life as a wee boy, and virtually everybody I knew as well. So yeah, really sad news.
It is really sad news. They brought so much joy to so many adults and children. I know my Cameron, my second son, he's got really bad dyslexia, and that's how I taught him to read, was through Asterix comics. And then from there he developed a love for other comics, and he's a big comic fan now. But yeah, and that was how I got him to kind of get into, because he always found reading very troublesome, and you get quite anxious and things. So yeah. I had read somewhere that sometimes reading a comic makes it easier for people with dyslexia, and it was the Asterix that we started him on. And yeah, so there's lots of joyous memories along with these comic strips and comics and films, and yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we'll live on, definitely.
Well, that is all we've got time for tonight. So I'd like to thank Sam for joining us from her isolation at home. We're obviously trying to keep the studio as clean as we can, keep as few people in here in the studio as possible. So we are going to be mostly broadcasting without people in the studio from now on. I will probably be broadcasting from home tomorrow night, doing the same show. We'll have someone else on the other end of the line. I don't know that that's going to be you tomorrow, Sam, but we will talk again. We'll talk again very soon, I'm sure. Before we go, we will just quickly remind you, please do stay at home as much as you can. Only go out if you need to go shopping for things you need, food and medicines. You're allowed out for a walk once a day. If you need to go out to care for somebody, or if you need to get to and from work. But as I say, even here, we've figured out a way that we don't have to be in the studio to work, that we can still provide much the same service to you as we would with me in the studio. You'll just be looking at me from the back room in my flat. So that is all we've got time for. As I say, thanks again to Sam. Thank you to you for joining us. We know that your viewership is the most important thing here. We are trying to ramp up a wee bit of what we do here at Broadcasting Scotland so that we can provide a bit more entertainment and things to keep you interested while you're stuck in the house for however long that's going to be. So if you're able to support us in that, I know times are tough for everybody, and I know that many of you just really don't have two halfpennies to rub together at the moment. But if you are able to support us financially, please do go to broadcastingscotland.scot/register, sign up as a supporter, contribute your £5 a month, and that will help us to get through this difficult period and help to make it easier for us to produce more and better shows for you. If you're not able to support us financially, then don't worry, the shows will always be free to view online, but you can help us a great deal by following us on Twitter at Broadcast Scot, finding us on Facebook, and by sharing the show around. Tell your friends about what we do here at Broadcasting Scotland. Tell them why it's worth watching the show. We like to think that we provide a slightly different perspective than you get from the mainstream media. And that's why we exist, is to provide that different perspective, and certainly a very Scotland-centred perspective. That's something that I think we all would view as important. So please do share the show around with more people at home. There may well be a desire for people to find new things to watch, new things to get interested in. So do please let them know about Broadcasting Scotland. And of course, if you want to get involved, we don't want to bring too many people into the studio. But if you're interested in becoming a host, we can do that for you from home. If you're interested in coming on as a guest, we can do that as well. And if you're interested in working as a journalist, for example, to help us put together the scripts for the shows, then that's something that also can be done from home, and we would really, really value somebody like that right now. It would take a lot of pressure off the rest of us here in the Broadcasting Scotland team. But that is all we've got time for tonight. So thanks again to Sam, and thanks again to you for joining us. As I say, I will be back at the same time tomorrow night, either in the studio or more likely broadcasting from home. But until then, have a great night. Cheers.